Okay, in this next collection of videos, we're going to be looking at education policies and how they can be used to achieve each of the goals. You need to know specific examples of policies. I suggest you learn probably 3 max of policies the government's implemented in recent years, and you're able to articulate how those are going to help us to achieve our goals. So when we're looking at education spending spending can include both current and capital expenditure. So when we're looking at capital expenditure, we're looking at funds for building of new schools or universities. We're looking at the building and the infrastructure or the equipment. Whereas current spending is your spending on training programs, improving the skills of staff, includes the wages of any training programs and things like that. So not physical assets that you can actually touch. Spending on education can come in any sector, so it can come in the primary, secondary, tertiary, or vocational. So when we're looking at vocational, we're looking mainly at apprenticeships and other forms of training. So it can include any forms of spending on capital or investment, equipment, facilities, from primary, secondary, vet, training, universities, and TAFE education. All count as education spending. Education spending is critical in terms of improving the quality of human capital. Okay, so basically just making a more skilled labour force. It allows employees to be more skilled and therefore be more productive, as well as more creative. Okay, there's a big push, and what you want to describe in your answers is this push towards a more creative workforce, or a workforce that's going to be better equipped with the skills for the current workforce and the changes in the workforce in the 21st century. So access to more education and training courses will improve the quality of training and improve the skills of the current and future workforce, which will help to boost productivity and expand our productive capacity. Okay, as you can see, countries that spend a higher amount on education per student, so this is education spending per student, and average GDP per capita, you can see there's a strong correlation between education spending on the y-axis and GDP per capita. So these countries that are spending less are generally experiencing lower GDP per capita. Okay, so education is critical for productivity. It's also critical for our dynamic efficiency. So to have a dynamically efficient labour force, they need to be multi-skilled, and so that they can be adapted to the changing demands of workers. This will help to reduce structural unemployment, because when preferences change and demand changes, these workers will be able to respond because they have that different skill set and that multifaceted skill set. A more skilled workforce allows employees to adapt to rapidly changing technology and structural changes in the workforce and take advantage of the growth opportunities at their disposal. There's a department called the Department of Education and Training. Their main role is just to try to basically reduce structural and long-term unemployment, and a lot of money is given to the Department of Education and Training, so approximately 42 to 47 billion to try and improve government spending on education. So we're going to look at now is examples of past policies that the government has implemented designed to try and improve the education system. So starting back with the Youth Jobs Path, some of the main ones I'd be focusing on if I was you was the Youth Jobs Path, Gonski, the Industry Skills Fund as an example of vocational spending, and the new Higher Education Reform Package. So they're 4 that I'd probably focus on mainly if I was you. This one's getting a bit old, but the other ones are from recent budgets. So the Youth Jobs Path program was announced in the 2016-17 budget, so 3 budgets ago now, and basically it was designed to improve the skills of young workers and get them the skills necessary to succeed in the current workforce. And it's sort of responding to the high levels of youth unemployment, and essentially it was a 3-step process where they would do 6 weeks of employability skills training, then they would undertake a 4 to 12 week internship program. So once they've developed the skills and training necessary, they would give subsidies for businesses to hire these workers for internships, and then there would be subsidies for businesses who employed these people on a more permanent basis. So any business that employed these people for over 6 months would then receive additional subsidies. To be part of this program, you had to be between the ages of 15 to 24, and you also needed to be unemployed for longer than 6 months. So, for example, this is an example of a question from last year's exam. Explain how increased funding on education as part of budgetary policy might help to improve aggregate supply and achieve the goals of strong and sustainable economic growth. So an increase in spending on training education is desired to improve the quality of labour resources. For example, the Youth Path program in 16-17 and the $1.5 billion Skilling Australians Fund. Increasing spending on training and education aim to improve the skills of the current and future members of the labour force, which helps to increase productivity and increases the nation's productive capacity because we're able to generate more output. By increasing aggregate supply and productive capacity, this reduces production costs and boosts the willingness and ability of producers to supply. It also means that the economy is able to achieve a higher rate of economic growth without inflationary pressures, helping to achieve strong and sustainable growth. So you're linking it to productivity, you're linking it to our overall productive capacity, you're linking it to firms reducing their production costs and therefore making them more willing and able to produce. The Industry Skills Fund was a fund set up in 2015 which was providing funding for more than 60,000 training places. Most of this was designed for small and medium businesses to help try to provide training and education to people already in the workforce. Probably not the one I'll be focusing on. We'll talk about someone in the next video that I'll be focusing more on.